Okay, so what do the Bible and algebra have in common? I know, it sounds like the setup for a really weird joke, but it turns out one curriculum has found a pretty fascinating way to connect these ancient stories with modern equations. So, let's dive in and see how they do it.
It's a question that students, parents, teachers, pretty much everyone has wrestled with. How do you make abstract math actually feel meaningful? How do you take algebra with all its x's and y's and make it connect to something, real?
Well, the curriculum we're looking at today has a really unique answer. It actually uses the high-stakes stories of biblical heroes to give some serious context and meaning to what would otherwise be just, well, a bunch of numbers. To see exactly how this works, let's start with a problem facing a very famous underdog, David.
So here's the setup. It's a classic word problem, right? But it's been reframed as this urgent challenge for a future king. He's got a starting point, 12 soldiers. He's got a rate of progress, 4 per day, and a very clear goal. And pay attention to that phrase, at least 40. That's the key that turns this into something more than just a simple equation. And this is where the story translates directly into math. It's actually pretty cool. The 4 soldiers per day becomes 4x, where x is the number of days he's training. The 12 he already has is just our flat number, plus 12. And that key phrase, at least 40, gives us our inequality symbol, greater than or equal to 40.
From there, it's a pretty straightforward two-step process to get our answer. First, we've got to deal with the soldiers he already has, so we subtract 12 from both sides of the inequality. That leaves us with 4x is greater than or equal to 28. Then, to figure out the number of days, x, we just divide both sides by 4.
And boom, there's our solution. X is greater than or equal to 7. So putting it back into the story, this means David has to train for at least 7 more days to be ready. All of a sudden, that abstract x has a real high-stakes meaning.
Now, seeing this on a number line makes it even clearer. We put a solid, filled-in dot right on the number 7. And it's closed because 7 is a totally valid answer. He could train for exactly 7 days and meet his goal. Then, the arrow points to the right, showing that any number bigger than 7, like 8, 9, or 20 days, also works.
And this whole thing with David's story, it's not just a one-off example. It's actually part of a bigger pattern that the curriculum uses to really hammer the concept home.
We see the exact same structure with other figures. You've got Queen Esther, who's getting gifts ready for guests but has a strict budget. That creates a less than or equal to problem. Or Nehemiah, who has to manage his workers to rebuild a wall but can't go over a certain capacity. Again, less than or equal to. Each story gives a different flavor to the very same math skill.
Okay, so we saw that closed dot for David's problem, but that's not the only kind of dot in the game. The number line has its own simple but really important set of visual rules.
The rule, which they lay out in their graphing tips, is actually super simple. If the number itself is part of the solution, meaning you have at least or no more than, you use a closed, filled-in dot. But if the inequality is strict, like less than or more than, you use an open dot. It's basically telling you that the number is the starting line, but it's not actually included in the answer.
So, for example, one of the homework problems is 7x plus 3 is less than 45. When you solve that, you get x is less than 6. In this case, x has to be strictly less than 6. The number 6 itself is the boundary, but it's not a solution. So that's why you'd graph it with an open circle on the 6 and an arrow pointing to the left for all the numbers smaller than it.
So we've seen the how, but that kind of leaves the why. Why frame math problems this way? Well, the last part of the lesson really gets into the philosophy behind the whole method.
The whole lesson is anchored by this verse from the book of Proverbs. It's this call to prioritize getting wisdom and understanding above everything else. And the curriculum draws a direct line from this ancient idea to the modern practice of doing your math homework.
And that right there, that's the big idea. The goal isn't just to find x. It's to frame mathematical planning, the exact skill that David and Nehemiah were using, as a real-world application of wisdom. In this view, math becomes way more than just numbers. It's a tool for understanding your world and making smart plans.
And that really leaves us with a bigger question, doesn't it? This curriculum is built on a foundation of these stories and the value of wisdom. It's a powerful reminder that, education is never really neutral. It makes you wonder, what other values from different philosophies or traditions could totally reshape how we learn other subjects? And maybe, more importantly, what unspoken values are already shaping how we're taught today? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for watching.